Let me describe something to you. You are in a conversation with someone. Could be a partner, could be a friend, could be someone you work with. And something happens in that conversation that does not sit right with you. Something they said or did not say. Something in the way they looked at you or did not look at you. Something that left a residue you cannot quite name. So you bring it up, calmly, reasonably, the way adults are supposed to handle things. And somehow, within 4 minutes of that conversation starting, you are no longer talking about the thing you brought up. You are now talking about something you did 3 weeks ago. You are now explaining yourself. You are now the one apologizing. And the original thing, the thing that did not sit right with you, the thing you came into this conversation to address, is gone. Buried under a landslide of redirections and counter-accusations, and sighs so heavy they have their own gravitational pull. And the worst part, the part that is going to make some of you nod slowly in recognition right now, is that by the time the conversation ends, you feel like the problem, not them. You. If that has happened to you, not once, but repeatedly, with the same person, or with different people across different seasons of your life, I need you to pay very close attention to the next 30 minutes. Because what I am about to show you is not what most people think emotional manipulation looks like. It is not dramatic. It is not obvious. It does not look like the villain in a movie. It looks like a normal Tuesday.
And the 3 signs I'm going to walk you through today are so specific, so precisely documented, and so deeply misunderstood by almost everyone who has ever experienced them that by the time we are done, you are going to be able to spot this from across a room before it even starts. But here is what I need from you first. Stay until sign number 3. Because sign number 3 is the one nobody talks about. It is the one that is hiding in the most ordinary moments of your daily life. And it is the one that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It will change something permanently. Before we go in, if you found this video and you are new to Psych 1.0, here is why you should hit subscribe right now rather than waiting until the end. Every single week on this channel, we go somewhere that most psychology content is too polished and too careful to go. We do not give you surface-level definitions. We give you the architecture, the mechanism, the thing underneath the thing that actually explains why it keeps happening to you specifically. If you are someone who has ever felt like you were going crazy in a relationship that looked fine from the outside, this channel was built for you. Subscribe now, then come back, because we are just getting started. Okay, let us go. Before we get to the 3 signs, I need to give you something that most videos on this topic skip entirely: the backstory. Because understanding where this knowledge comes from changes how you receive it. Emotional manipulation, as a documented, studied, named phenomenon, is surprisingly recent in the history of psychology. For most of the 20th century, when people described being controlled, gaslit, or systematically undermined by someone close to them, the clinical and cultural response was largely the same. You are probably overreacting. You were too sensitive. You must have done something to provoke it. The idea that a person could be methodically, strategically controlled through invisible psychological tactics without ever being physically harmed was not taken seriously as a form of abuse until well into the latter half of the last century. Think about what that means for every person who experienced this before that shift happened. They were not just being manipulated, they were being told by the world around them that the manipulation was not real. That is a specific kind of loneliness that is very hard to describe to someone who has not lived it.
Here is what changed things.
Researchers studying narcissistic abuse, cult dynamics, and coercive control in intimate relationships began identifying patterns. Consistent, repeatable, cross-cultural patterns that appeared in the accounts of people who had never met each other, from completely different backgrounds, describing completely different people, using almost identical language. He made me feel like I was going crazy. I was always the one apologizing. I could never figure out what I had done wrong, but I always felt like I had done something wrong. She was completely different in front of other people. I stopped trusting my own memory. The same words, again and again, across thousands of documented cases. That consistency told researchers something important. This was not random interpersonal dysfunction. This was a pattern. A repeatable, learnable, teachable pattern of behavior that specific types of people deployed, consciously or not, to maintain power and control in their relationships. And here is the thing about patterns. Once you can name them, you can see them. And once you can see them clearly enough, soon enough, you can get out of the way before they hit you. That is what the next 30 minutes is about. Not therapy, not healing, not processing your feelings about it. Practical pattern recognition. The kind that lets you sense it from miles away and make a decision before you are already inside it. Let us start with sign 1.
Sign 1. They make you doubt your own memory.
Sign 1 has a name you have probably heard: gaslighting. And I know what some of you are thinking right now. You are thinking you already know about gaslighting. You have seen the videos, you have read the articles, you have nodded along to the definition. But here is why I am still putting it at number 1. Because almost nobody understands what gaslighting actually feels like from the inside, while it is happening. They understand it retrospectively, looking back, in the clean light of distance and therapy and enough time to gain perspective. But in the moment, in the actual moment when it is being done to you by someone whose opinion matters to you, it does not feel like abuse. It feels like you might actually be wrong. That is the part that makes it so effective. And that is the part that most explanations completely miss. Let me give you the history first, because it matters. The term gaslighting comes from a 1944 film called Gaslight. In it, a husband systematically manipulates his wife into believing she is losing her mind. He moves objects and denies moving them. He dims the gas lights in their home and tells her she is imagining the change in light. He isolates her from people who might confirm her reality. All of it calculated, all of it quiet, all of it wrapped in an expression of loving concern for her deteriorating mental state that he is engineering.
The film was disturbing when it came out. It is more disturbing now because researchers studying coercive control found that the tactics in a fictional 1944 film were being used in almost identical form by real people in real relationships across the world. Not because they had seen the film, because the tactics work. And people who need control tend to find the tactics that work. Here is what it looks like in practice, and I want you to listen to these examples carefully because they are deliberately ordinary. You have a conversation with your partner where they said something that hurt you. You remember it clearly. You remember where you were standing. You remember the specific words. You bring it up later. They tell you that is not what they said.
Not that they meant it differently. Not that you misunderstood. That it is not what they said. That you are remembering it wrong. That you always do this. Take things out of context. Make mountains out of nothing. Hear things that were not there. And here is the moment that matters. You start to wonder. Not because the evidence supports wondering, but because the certainty with which they deny it
is so complete, so unbothered, so undefensive, that some part of your brain interprets the confidence as credibility. Confident people tend to be right. That is a heuristic your brain runs automatically. And the skilled gaslighter is almost always confident. Because they have done this before. Because it has worked before. Because the architecture of the manipulation depends entirely on their absolute certainty colliding with your reasonable doubt. You are a reasonable person. You know you are not perfect. You know memory is imperfect. You know you have been wrong before. So you factor in the doubt. And that doubt is the crack that everything else gets through. Here is the truth that will make you nod slowly. The people who get gaslit most effectively are not naive people. They are not weak people. They are not people with low intelligence. They are people with high empathy, strong intellectual honesty, and a genuine willingness to consider that they might be wrong. Those are not weaknesses. Those are virtues.
And a skilled manipulator turns your virtues into the mechanism of your own confusion. Your intellectual honesty becomes your vulnerability. Your willingness to consider you might be wrong becomes the lever they use to make you wrong about things you were right about. That is what makes gaslighting so insidious. It does not work on arrogant people who are never wrong. It works on thoughtful people who are always willing to reconsider. Think about the people you know who never question themselves. Now, think about whether any of them have ever described being gaslit. Exactly.
So how do you recognize it in real time, before the doubt sets in? Here is the pattern to watch for. The conversation shifts from the content of what happened to your credibility as a witness to what happened. That shift is the signal. In a healthy disagreement about something that happened, two people with different memories compare those memories, try to understand each other's perspective, and work toward a shared understanding. In a gaslighting dynamic, one person's memory is never in question, only yours. They are never wondering if they might be remembering it wrong. They are only ever suggesting that you are. If you notice that every disagreement about events somehow ends with your perception being the thing under examination, rather than the event itself, that asymmetry is the sign. Write it down somewhere if you need to. Literally write down what you remember immediately after it happens, before the conversation that will try to make you doubt it. Your written account from the immediate moment is more reliable than your memory of a conversation that was specifically designed to make you distrust your memory. That is your first tool against sign 1.
Sign 2 is quieter than sign 1. It has no famous name. There is no film from 1944 that documented it. It does not appear on most lists of manipulation tactics, and it is happening to more men in more ordinary relationships and workplaces right now than gaslighting ever will. Because it does not look like manipulation at all. It looks like someone who cares about you. Stay with me.
Sign 2. They control you through obligation, not affection. I want you to think about someone in your life who you help a lot. Maybe you help them financially. Maybe you help them with time, with labor, with emotional support, with advice, with showing up when things go wrong. Maybe you have been helping them for years. Now, I want you to answer one question honestly. Does helping them feel good? Not does it feel good afterward, in the abstract sense of having done a good thing. Does the actual act of helping them feel good? Is there genuine warmth in it? Do you feel seen and appreciated in a way that makes you glad you showed up? Or does it feel more like a debt payment? Like something you do not entirely want to do, but feel you cannot say no to without something going wrong, without them going cold, without a silence that sits in the room for days, without becoming, in their narrative, the person who was not there for them? If it feels like the second one, you are not in a helping relationship. You are in an obligation loop. And obligation loops are one of the most sophisticated and least discussed forms of emotional manipulation that exist.
Here is how they work. The person who runs obligation loops on you is rarely obvious about it. They are not demanding. They do not issue ultimatums. They do not threaten directly. What they do is create a consistent emotional environment in which saying no to them feels like a moral failure. They do this through several specific mechanisms. The first is preemptive victimhood. Before they ask you for something, they establish their suffering, not necessarily consciously, but consistently. They are always in some state of difficulty, always carrying something heavy, always a little worse off than everyone around them. And they communicate this suffering in a way that positions you specifically as one of the few people who truly understands them, who truly sees them, who truly cares. That positioning is the setup. Because now, when they need something from you, they are not asking a favor from someone who has their own life and their own needs. They are reaching out to the one person who actually cares. Saying no does not feel like a reasonable boundary. It feels like abandoning someone who only has you. That feeling was engineered. Not necessarily consciously. Some people who run this pattern have been running it since childhood and have never examined it. They learned that suffering was the language that got them what they needed, and they never updated the vocabulary. But the impact on you is the same whether it is conscious or not. You keep showing up.
The second mechanism is the favor ledger. People who control through obligation are almost always very generous in specific, strategic ways early in a relationship. They do things for you before you ask. They show up dramatically when something goes wrong. They make gestures that feel significant and that establish a sense of debt that is never named directly, but is always implicitly present. They gave a lot to you. You are someone who honors your commitments. Therefore, when they need something, you respond. That math runs in the background of every interaction without ever being spoken. And here is the truth that will make you uncomfortable. The early generosity was not random. It was investment. Not necessarily calculated. Some people who do this genuinely felt generous in those early moments. But the generosity had a function, whether or not it was intended to. It created the ledger. And now, the ledger is being collected. The third mechanism is the consequence of your no. Here is how you know you are in an obligation loop rather than a genuine relationship. Say no to something, anything, a request, a favor, a plan they wanted to make. Now watch what happens. In a healthy relationship, the person hears your no, accepts it with basic dignity, and the relationship continues without a change in temperature. In an obligation loop, your no produces a consequence. Maybe they go quiet for a few days. Maybe they make a comment later that suggests they have filed your no somewhere, and it is informing how they see you now. Maybe they tell a mutual friend that you have not been there for them lately. Maybe they simply become slightly less warm, slightly less available, slightly more distant, in a way that is never directly connected to your no, but that you understand perfectly well is connected to your no. The consequence teaches you that no is expensive, and over time, you stop saying it. Not because you want to keep helping,
because you have learned that the cost of not helping is higher than the cost of helping when you do not want to. That is not a relationship. That is a system of behavioral conditioning. And the person running it on you may never have thought about it that way for a single day in their life. That almost makes it worse, because you cannot have a direct conversation about something neither of you can name. So how do you recognize it before you are 3 years into an obligation loop with someone? Watch for the pattern of how they respond to your no in small, low-stakes moments. Not the big asks, the small ones. Can you talk right now? No, I am in the middle of something. Can we reschedule? How do they receive that? With basic ease and no residue?
Or with something that is technically fine, but leaves a small amount of something in the air that you carry around for the rest of the day. The small moments are the honest data points. Because in the small moments, they are not performing. They are just responding. And how they respond to a low-stakes no tells you everything about what a high-stakes no will cost you. That is your early warning system for sign 2. Now here is what I promised you. Sign 3 is the one that is going to surprise you, because it does not involve another person doing something to you at all. It involves something that is already happening inside you. Something that you have been interpreting as your own personality for so long.
Sign 3. You have started monitoring yourself on their behalf. Before I give you sign 3, I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly in the comments. Think about a specific person in your life, past or present, around whom you have ever rehearsed a conversation before having it. Just drop one word below describing who that person is to you. Partner, friend, boss, parent. Just the word. I will be reading every single one. Here is sign 3. You are rehearsing conversations before you have them. You are replaying conversations after you have had them. You are editing yourself in real time while you are speaking, monitoring the words coming out of your mouth against an internal model of how this person is likely to receive them. You are, in other words, running a continuous background process of self-surveillance that is calibrated entirely to another person's responses. And you have been doing it for so long that you have stopped noticing it is not normal. Here is the truth. You were not born doing this. You learned it. You learned it in a specific relationship with a specific person, because that specific person's responses to you were inconsistent enough, or severe enough, or unpredictable enough that your nervous system decided the safest strategy was to try to anticipate the outcome before it arrived.
If I can figure out how they are going to react before I say the thing, I can say it in a way that prevents the reaction I am afraid of. That is the logic. And the logic is not crazy. It is actually very rational, given the environment it developed in. The problem is that you carried the monitoring system out of the original environment and into every environment after it. You are now running a surveillance system on yourself that was built for a specific threat that may no longer be present. And the system is expensive. Think about what it costs you in a single day. The mental energy that goes into thinking through how a message to someone will land before you send it. The second guessing that happens after you say something in a meeting and spend the next 40 minutes replaying it to assess how it was received. The low-grade vigilance that runs underneath normal social interactions, where you are simultaneously present and monitoring your own presence for anything that might produce a negative response. That is not anxiety in the clinical disorder sense. That is the residue of being in proximity to someone whose responses taught you that your unedited self was not safe. And here is the part that is most important. The person who originally installed that monitoring system may not even be in your life anymore. The system runs on its own now.
You do not need them present to continue self-monitoring on their behalf. You have internalized the surveillance. You have become, in a very real sense, your own jailer, using the rules of someone who may have left the building years ago. That is what long-term emotional manipulation does at its deepest level. It does not just change how you behave around the person doing it. It changes how you behave when nobody is watching. It changes what you believe you are allowed to say, what you believe you are allowed to need, what you believe you are allowed to be without editing. And most people who carry this never connect it back to the original source. They just think they are anxious, or overthinking, or a people pleaser by nature. They do not realize that the people pleasing, the anxiety, the rehearsing, and the replaying had a specific point of origin, a specific relationship, a specific person whose responses taught them that unedited was dangerous. Does that land anywhere for you? I am asking genuinely, because if it does, what I am about to give you is important. Drop in the comments right now. Finish this sentence. I realized I was monitoring myself when... Just finish it. Whatever comes up first. You do not have to explain it. Just the moment. I will be reading every one.
So how do you actually fix this? Not manage it. Fix it. Here is the honest answer. You fix it by doing the thing the monitoring was designed to prevent. You say the unedited thing. Not recklessly, not without judgment, but deliberately, in low-stakes situations first. You practice letting the unfiltered version of your thought leave your mouth without running it through the surveillance system first. And then you watch what happens. Because the monitoring system was built on a prediction. The prediction that unedited you produces bad outcomes. That saying the thing without softening it first leads to the consequence you were afraid of. And in the original environment, that prediction was probably accurate. But you are not in the original environment anymore. And the only way to update the prediction is to run the experiment. Say the thing. Watch the actual outcome. Compare it to the predicted outcome.
I want to give you the thing that ties all three signs together, because they are not three separate phenomena. They are three stages of the same process. Stage 1, gaslighting, makes you doubt your perception of reality. Stage 2, obligation loops, make you doubt your right to have needs. Stage 3, self-surveillance, is what happens after stages 1 and 2 have run long enough. You stop needing the external manipulator to control you. You control yourself on their behalf, automatically, invisibly, without anyone asking you to. That progression is the full architecture of emotional manipulation at its most complete. And the reason I said at the beginning that these are not what most people think is because most people think emotional manipulation is something that is done to you by an identifiable villain in an obviously toxic situation. It is not. At its most effective, it is something that happens so gradually, so quietly, so wrapped in moments of genuine warmth and real connection that by the time you notice it, you have already incorporated it into your sense of who you are. The work of undoing it is not dramatic either. It is the quiet, daily, sometimes boring practice of noticing when you are monitoring yourself and asking whose voice installed the rule you are monitoring for, and then deciding deliberately whether that rule still deserves to run your life. Most of the time, it does not. Most of the time, the voice belongs to someone who's either gone or who never deserved that much real estate in your head in the first place. You get to evict it. Not all at once, but one honest, unmonitored,
unedited sentence at a time.
If this video reached somewhere real, share it with one person. Not to call anyone out, just because understanding this changes something, and changed things are worth sharing. And if you are not subscribed to Psych 1.0 yet, this is the moment. Every week on this channel, we go into the places that most psychology content carefully avoids, the specific mechanisms, the architecture underneath the behavior, the things that explain not just what is happening, but why it keeps happening to you specifically, and what actually changes it. That is what we do here. Subscribe and come with us, because next week, we are going somewhere that connects everything we talked about today to something you interact with every single day and have probably never thought about this way. I will see you there. Take care of your mind. It is the only one you have got.